Felice, who leads the analytics practice at Denver's Rabble Browser. Right down the street, works with a lot of big brands. His areas of expertise include consumer insights, data analysis, visualization, user research, and experience-based design, emerging technologies, and innovative strategic planning. So please welcome Tony Felice to the stage.
Man, that is a mouthful. Pretty good. Good. Yeah. It kind of thinned out in here a little bit. I guess these people saw WWDC 14. Oh, yeah. Yeah, as he, can you guys hear me? Do I need the mic? I can hear you fine. Okay, great. So as he mentioned, I'm Tony Felice. Put up my first commercial website in '93, so I've been working in the space for a while. I tell you a little bit about like what we do, but I always hate those really indulgent presentations where they're like, and we're fantastic, and blah, blah, blah. But we are right down the street. And you should have seen my jaw drop when they told me that if I work more than 40 hours a week, I get that time back next week. That was weird. They're a really cool crew. And we are talking about Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager today. Show of hands, who uses Google Analytics? It's just about everybody. How about Google Tag Manager? Really? Really? I'm shocked. Okay, so the hell of this deck, okay? Google Tag Manager is probably the sweetest thing to happen since sliced bread. And I get really excited about it because I'm this kind of data geek. But if you're an Android developer, think about the problems that you've got. If you have a change, you just moved to release. You've got a change that you've got to push out. One of the stakeholders comes in and says, "Oh, make the logo bigger," like they tend to do. Something like you've never heard that one, right? So they come running in. Everybody's hair is on fire. The ducks are on fire, actually. Yes. And so you've got to quickly iterate and get a release out. And they're like, "When is this going to be live in the App Store?" Now, if you're using the Google Tag Manager, you can actually craft your app using variables from the Tag Manager and push that stuff out to live apps that are already running. You won't have the problem of version fragmentation, like who's running what. It's freaking awesome. So one of the things that I thought, and kind of come to talk to you guys. I'm a geek, and this is really geeky stuff. But at the same time, the amount of information that's out there, the different things, the crazy things, crazy amazing things that you can do with Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics together, it's just way too much to cover in a half an hour. At the same time, the fact that there were no hands up when I was asking about Google Tag Manager, really, come on, were you guys just shy? I won't call you out. Okay. The fact that we're all more or less programmers, developers, data geeks. it's kind of one of the big trends that I see in this industry is that developers, by and large, aren't really interested in analytics. They're not really interested in the tag manager because those sorts of things are what the stakeholders ask you to do. You know, I mean, think about Google Analytics. Like somebody came and said, "You have that on there? Did you copy and paste that code? You go and log up for an account? I did. Here's the tag. Put it on there." And you go, "All right, fine." And you drop the thing in there. But as developers, this is what we do. This is what we make. There's no better way to show the value of our work than to be able to prove how it actually impacts the bottom line. And all these people who walk over to your desk and hand you a snippet of code and say, "Paste this onto the website," all of those people, they have these ideas of what they want this thing to do. They have these ideas about all this data that they want to get out of this application, but they don't know how to do it. They can just sort of grasp at straws. The people in this room, these are the people who know how to do this. And you can make this shit do backflips if you actually play with it. So one of the things that I've learned is that every good presentation has charts. So I thought that I would share some really smart charts with you. Okay, so we can see here on the left, this is the market share of Google Analytics. 50% of the websites in the world have Google Analytics installed. Interestingly though, 37% don't have shit. So that means that Google Analytics has an 82% market share in the analytics space. Google Analytics is, as I keep like beating the drum, it's super robust. This is an analytics platform that would cost $500,000 a year if you bought it from Adobe. Used to be amateur. I have trouble keeping track of who's who, like the other stuff, you know. But this is far away the most powerful analytics platform on the planet. So why do they give it away for free? Because it's the most powerful thing on the planet. Okay. Oh yeah. So the interesting thing is when I drop this on other rooms, you know, most of the time I don't have the pleasure of speaking to real coders. So I'll go, "Okay, can anybody tell me what Google is?" And you know, one real studious chap in the front will go, "It's a search engine." Well, kinda. So Google is an advertising company. They are in the business, exactly as we said, they are in the business of collecting your data and selling the shit out of it. Oh, this wasn't even supposed to be part of the talk, but I just kind of went off on a tangent in my brain, so I thought I'd share it with you. Share this. Is anybody familiar with Share This? You know, the social widget bar that the stakeholders say, install this on the website? I was trying to debug a website yesterday, and I discovered that Share This is injecting a Google Tag Manager payload along with their snippet, and in that payload, they have all kinds of data collection that actually violates their own damn terms of service. Okay? I went and read the terms of service after I called them out on Twitter. I went and read their terms of service, and it says, "We promise that we will never collect any data that identifies your person or share this with any third parties." Well, so Atlas, use Atlas. Okay. Blah blah blah. So back to the how do we do it on time? All right, Google's an advertising company. If we're making stuff, we're kind of in that business, whether we want to admit it or not. I've got a friend who I've worked with for years in advertising. He's in a new shop, and they call himself a software shop, but he's still doing the same thing. Making products, designing products for people to use so that they can sell them and make money. So our goals are not very different than Google's, really, or any other advertising company. Our goals, if we really boil things down, what do we want? We want to be really interesting. We want to be memorable. We want to be valuable. We want to be something that people talk about, that people share. That's the only way we get adoption. We know that. So I don't know why everybody keeps pasting this damn snippet into their pages without figuring out what the hell they can actually do. So any JavaScript nerds in the room, I would beseech of you to actually go out and request, this was old, this is, where is it? GDG. But download JS, your unifier, and figure out what that thing is actually doing, because there's bananas, really cool things. Aside from that, coming back to the idea of what our real goals are, what we're really trying to accomplish. Oops, I forgot the really important slide there. The 3 pillars of digital strategy. That's it. Acquisition, behavior, and outcome. Where do they come from? What do they do? And what does it matter? And it's that simple. As a developer, I can tell you that I personally struggle with the idea of analytics. It's not my thing. I didn't take stats classes and stuff like that. It's just the thing that you asked me to paste onto the page, and I'm not really all that into it. So, but after thinking about it and sort of experiencing it and layering on the idea of what you can actually do with these things, I start to get pretty interested. So acquisition, I mean, we're talking about search, we're talking about social, we're talking about email, and what's this other icon I set up? YouTube. Thank you. Okay, behaviors. What does it mean? Like, sorry, what do they do? Did they trigger some goals? Did they like your product? The outcomes. So this is really where it starts to gel for me. When I start to understand how this thing, what this actually means, okay? Looking at the filters that come out of Google Analytics. So in order to look at the filters, you have to set them up. Very, very helpful. So many people, like I said, they copy and paste, and they're like, check that one off, go walk around the water cooler. There's a lot of configuration that still needs to be done in analytics. And I've seen, I work with lots of big brands. Overstock.com, Aspen Snowmass, Molson Coors, the list just goes on and on and on. And every single time I get into their analytics, it's a default installation. That default installation is nothing more than a hit counter on steroids. Remember those little hit counters we used to have? I do. But and the analog to today's world is likes. Likes to that tells us absolutely nothing. So the filters, another great outcome is our little icon for an A/B test. How many do A/B testing? And you don't use the tag manager? It's a I'm sure you probably know how to do it. How do you actually do your A/B testing? Optimism?
No, well, I use Optimizing, but I don't know, just whatever platform you have, let's do it. Whatever you're testing on, let's do it.
Okay.
We use Optimizing some, but we also have our own in-house A/B testing.
Okay. Sales it sure is interesting with the shirts, and I'm going back to the original point, that there's no better way to prove our value and the value of the work that we do than to be able to show data that proves how effective it is. I believe that the secret to life is actually tricking the rest of the world into paying you to be yourself. And I submit to you that if we all lost our jobs tomorrow, we would probably still go home and sit on the computer and make stuff. And finally, user satisfaction. At the end of the day, that probably matters more than sales, at least in the long term. So, looking at acquisition a bit, I've heard this a million times. Have you? Content is king! Well, if content is king, then context is God. And we actually heard a little taste of that today when we were kind of talking about Google Now, talking about the importance of context. Understanding where somebody came from is important. Understanding what device somebody was coming from is important. Understanding what time of day is important. But what's more important is to be able to look at all that stuff in aggregate and be able to slice and dice and really understand where those opportunities are. Because if you want to make more customers, the best way to do that is to understand what your current customers are, where they are, what they're doing, how they're getting there. That ultimately, that is what leads to real value in your application. And that's how you create that intent. That intent that in turn is realized through things like search. You know, I kind of mentioned that I'm sort of in the advertising business. You know, do I do billboards? Hell no. You know, TV commercials? No, thank you. Banner ads? Nope. Even retargeting. I mean, we could probably have an entire session just on retargeting, and there would be part of the room that would say, oh my gosh, retargeting is the absolute best thing because you're capturing people who've already demonstrated that they're really, really focused on your product. And I'd say, yeah, you're only fishing in the pond that you've already pulled the fish out of. You've already nailed those people, more or less. There is some value in that, but when it comes down to it, it comes down to search. For me, in my mind, and in the data that I see, it comes down to search. When I have a question, I ask my brain in my pocket, right? And don't we all do the same thing? I mentioned, I sort of didn't tell it who I am, but I've got, I've got 2 college students. But one of the things that was really interesting to me watching those guys go through high school, and they're, you know, they just screw up with this stuff. They just take it for granted. You know, fish don't know they're swimming in water. You know, these guys are like, oh yeah. You know, ask them a question, and they walk up, and they go, oh yeah, it's that intent is always going to, I think it's, at least for the short term, is going to be expressed in search. And I think Google knows that. They really doubled down on app indexing. That mobile search update that just happened about a month ago. It's not going away. Behavior. What did these people do? Okay, well, they came to the page and bounced. 58% bounced. Tell me something meaningful. I don't give a shit about a bounce rate. Use the segmentation tool that analytics has. Get those bounce people out of there. Those are the people that were walking by the Apple store in the mall and didn't go in. Everybody looks. I want to know about the people who actually came in. I want to know about the people who actually spent some time there. Did you know, anecdotally, that the time on site that you see in your analytics reports, time on page, it's not accurate? Anybody know why? Oh yeah, that's a great one. I mean, it's greatly exaggerated in some regard, and it's also grossly underestimated in another regard. Because if you're going to count the time from A
to be, you've got to have a be, right? So if somebody loads your page, fires an analytics tag, and then they leave, unless you've got something written into your application to capture that action, fire another tag, and then let them leave, you don't have a beat to count. And so those people who bounce on your website, they come to one page and they leave. Those people will always show as 0 time on site. Now say you've written this really amazing article about this great presentation that you heard about analytics. Thank you. I'll be here all day. You know, it happens to be gargantuan, okay? It's easily a 15-minute read. So you pop that link out to all your networks, and your Google Plus, of course, props to Google. Pop that out to your Google Plus so you get some traffic. And you look at the data and you're like, man, like everybody bounced. They spent like 30 seconds on my article. It was really hard on me. Well, no, that's not true. Somebody could actually come to your page, sit there for 15 minutes reading the thing, leave, and they show us a bounce, and they show 0 time on site. And that is one of the easiest to grasp concepts or ideas around why you really have to dive into this stuff and squeeze its little neck to get it to sort out the right data. So I guess I sort of rambled on through most of this stuff. But that was kind of my point. Asking better questions. Configuring your data collection so that it has the opportunity to ask those better questions. You know, you can't get a full picture of anything if you just got one. Behavior. So going back to the idea of A/B testing. I'll tell you a story. I was working on a project for Univision. How else is it going? Okay, so I was working on a project for Univision. In this particular project, they were selling a prepaid card. Really high value for them, actually, because not only are they, you know, they're getting that card into people's wallet, people who are more or less underbanked, but they're getting all of their actual real life personal information. So that was pretty valuable for them. So, you know, we took the design team went in the room and go, God, you know, this beautiful stuff, man, wow. And they come out and they're like, here, client, it's awesome. And like the design team always does, you know, they'll sit there and they'll think, oh, you know, this is actually Helvetica. It's beautiful. It is, man, anytime you hear that stuff, tell the people to shut up. Good design should stand on its own. If it needs an explanation, it needs a reward. Anyhow, so we went and blah, blah, blah. We put this site out there, and the conversion rate went through the toilet. And of course, everybody was standing at my desk going, why? And I said, don't really know right offhand, because all of this, we have the analytics configured correctly, and all of the signals were telling us that we were getting the right traffic in, that people were looking at this content, and that it wasn't sticking. So we went from something that looked like, like an eBay ad circa 2001 to this really highly polished, you know, super slick website. Well, the first hypothesis I had was, maybe this really doesn't resonate with this audience. We knew that they were underbanked, and yet the creative team came out here and they were like, oh, you know, Lexuses and Ferraris and all this fancy shit. And all of these people, I really believe that they looked at this and said, boy, that is probably not for me. So we did some A/B testing. I mean, multivariate, crazy stuff to actually put your finger on exactly what turned the needle. But we flipped the script. We swung the pendulum completely the other way. We took this design and we just cheesed it up so that it looked really approachable. The conversion rate kind of came back up. One of the things, the UI guy was telling me, oh man, we have to make the button green. Green means go. We have to make it green. I said, well, no, I don't know about that. You know, the rest of the site, you know, the green kind of really blended into the rest of it. I said, let's try red. And you should have seen him just lose his junk. He's like, no, you can't do that. Couldn't possibly. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, let's put it to an A/B test. Let's let the data decide. Because of all of our experience, all of our collective experience, we thought there were a bunch of real smart people in that room. All of our collective experience didn't add up to what the actual user experience was. We can find hypotheses, but we need to make sure we test these and make sure the data bears out. When we change that button to red, the button, you kind of look at it, and the button just kind of flies off the page, and you switch your eyes with nothing. The conversion rate actually increased 300% just by changing the button to red, which is something that you're never, ever supposed to do. That's one of the beautiful things about the data. The other thing about data, remember that shirt and tie that came running into your office and slapped your coat snipping on your desk and said, "We need to install this right now, Johnson. Stop." Okay? Those people, they have an expectation. All these people that are paying money, paying our salaries, they have an expectation that this thing is going to perform at a certain level. They also have this perception, perhaps fallacious, but this perception that anything digital can be measured. I would agree that that's absolutely true. If you measure it, again, going back to the thing about the bounce rate. You know, oh, I installed the thing, put the default thing, walk in, walk over, catch it. No, the catch here is that, again, we are the only people who actually can figure out how to configure this thing the right way. The stakeholders have an idea and they can try and express it, and they're out reading blogs and trying to find things to send you and fill up your inbox with like, oh, Johnson, what if we tried it like this? Those people are just grasping at straws because they're not getting the right data out. And we can do this. So, outcome. What does it matter? What difference does it make? Oh, I have 6 minutes. Okay, Russia, where are you? I'm sorry. Okay, outcome. Data is not an outcome. It's a status. Optimization is the outcome. So we're coming back to our 3 pillars of digital strategy. Where they came from, what they knew, and what the hell did it matter. This is the ecosystem for optimization. So, if we understand that flow, where they came from, what they did, what it mattered, really simply, we can get to this idea I like to call it measurement routine. Okay? Number 1, ignore vanity metrics. I talked about the bounce rate. Okay? There are other vanity metrics, hit counter type stuff, page views. How many page views did we get? Okay? One thing that's really important to remember, we all know this because Google Analytics collects via JavaScript. There are plenty of situations where JavaScript is not going to fire. Most of the time, we deliberately push it down the bottom of the page and load it asynchronously. So there is a very high possibility that somebody can actually come to this page, do what they needed to do, and not actually trigger that analytics being provided. Okay? Instead, look at composites. So the idea of a composite is an index, basically, a conversion of this many people. How many people did this thing? And that's exactly the kind of thing that analytics is designed to do. The stakeholders believe that analytics will tell you X number of people did wrong. That's not true. Because again, that's not. But it's a great tool for correctional data. It's a great tool to say X% of people did wrong. Okay, dashboards, we all love dashboards, but it's great to be able to have your finger on the pulse of something. The last time I walked into a place and saw a report, it was an Excel sheet, 1,500 lines long, gazillion columns. You don't know what it was. It doesn't mean anything. And with the data dump like that, you can't tell stories. You can't help a person, a non-technical stakeholder, walk through, in your mind, how that person got from A to B and what the challenges might be. Yeah, don't tell stories rather than recite numbers. talked about it before, but okay. So you've got all that basic bare bones stuff that you see in those analytics reports. If you've ever looked at it, okay. If you haven't, I urge you to look at this stuff. This is what proves our value. Okay. You can actually, you've got new visitors versus return visitors. That's built into analytics, right? You can actually get any data that's pertinent to your application into analytics to show up in those same reports, slice and dice the same way you use all those other tools, okay? So in this case, 68% say the princess and 31% are still jumping on that turtle. That's important stuff. That's how it gets relevant. And we're the only people who can do that. You know how? Why? Because it requires this very magical two lines, of code. It's very complicated to non-technical stakeholders. GA, set my dimension name, my dimension value. You trigger that at a certain time, you're going to push that data into analytics, just like that. Okay? How do you push that data into analytics? With the tag manager. The tag manager is a beautiful thing. You can run any conceivable front-end code through the tag manager. CSS, HTML, JavaScript. It is an absolute backdoor to any website. Which is why I was so pissed to see it share this, just like do that stuff. That's not a real strong selling point though, so I'm not going to keep that. I think I don't know if we sell that through. The Google Tag Manager, you can set up very custom triggers. You can even set up your own triggers, okay? Remember those times where we needed to create events? We needed to have tons of events because somebody on the other side of the table, they knew what they were asking for. They knew what they were talking about. They wanted to see those events, those things fire in analytics. So we went back to the table and we're like, okay, Google, how to GA events. Okay, that's it. Perfect. Copy, paste on that element. Copy, paste on that element. Copy, paste on that element. So way back in the early days of the web, we would just write one page and it would have, our CSS, as neat as it was, our JavaScript, all of our HTML. Somebody came along and said, hey, separation of presentation style, MVC frameworks and things like this, okay? This is the next evolution of that. The data layer that exists within the Google Tag Manager is that one place to wedge all of that stuff. The Google Tag Manager actually allows you to handle all of those events without specifically modifying your code in line. You do not have to change your display templates. You do not have to physically modify your screens or pages or apps. You can actually have the Google Tag Manager track that and trigger on those things for you, which is beautiful. Okay, I have a really cool infographic here. So this is a visualization of what most, like 98% of the websites have contained in their data layer currently.
It's well organized.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It was tough. I worked hard at that. The data layer, blah. You get this. Like you can, if you bring your data into this data layer that anything else can access, you end up with a sort of Rosetta Stone for all this data. So if you've got one database that needs an object formatted like this, or this type of string, or whatever, this thing spits out the other stuff. You can bring that stuff into the data layer and launch it so that it's normalized so that it can be consumed by all of these other tags and all these other things that you're tracking. Blah. Key takeaways. Okay. Good decisions are data-driven. And no one is more qualified to do this than developers. And with that, I give you the illustrious Mr. Rob Rushing. I could probably give a little introduction to Rob Rushing because I've known him almost as long as I've known JavaScript. He was actually one of the founding members of the Macromedia Core Fusion users group. Here, I should have said that. Not allowed.
Hey, you know, there's still a crap ton of people that use cold fusion.
Yeah, I know, I met one last week. And Rob was also one of the first glass explorers here in the state of Colorado, let alone definitely. I give you Rob Rush.